Good morning, everyone. Hopefully, I'm live and you can see me. This is a bit of an impromptu one, so I'm sorry for those who weren't expecting me. But if you can see me, please do say hello. As always, I'm Chrissa. I'm the founder of Sunshine Support. Um, and I just wanted to come on just briefly. I know I've done a Facebook Live this week all about the return to school, and so many of you have shared your stories with us. And there is definitely a massive theme of not being believed, not being understood, and this constant punitive approach of fines and punishments. And I'm not seeing any genuine action from those in power, or indication of action that number one, they understand what's going on. Um, and number two, they're going to be able to put that right. Um, and this is really frustrating. And I've just been watching the BBC this morning, and I was watching Wes Streeting talking about, the Labour plans. I'm not going to make this political, but these people are in power. And I'm never going to talk publicly about pitting one political party against another. Just not into it. However, he is a person who is in power, or has a limited amount of power, more than I do. And he was discussing on BBC Breakfast um, how they're going to be putting into place breakfast clubs. And he sort of painted it as, this wraparound childcare, and every child will have this opportunity to be able to engage with breakfast clubs. Which is lovely and very, very beneficial to so many families, so many families. And he didn't go, I don't think he touched upon how that was going to be funded. I think it's going to be state funded, even better. We know that childcare issues are enormous. However, it almost comes with a bit of a caveat, or a bit of a, I don't know, like there are terms attached to this, because what happens is when your child, according to these guys, this isn't in place yet, by the way, this is just about, he's talking about his plans. He was talking about when the children attend the breakfast club, that their teeth will be checked by teachers, and that they will be taught how to brush their teeth, because apparently, and I don't know, I haven't seen the figures on this, but he was saying the number one reason for hospital admissions, and by all means, if you have the evidence of something else, please do share it in the comments. The number one reason, according to Wes Streeting, of hospital admissions in children is teeth related. So that is news to me. Maybe I've been living under a rock and this has been a real problem, and I'm very fortunate that it's not a problem for my children. But it really annoyed me, because they're giving with one hand and then sort of doing this whole sort of state control thing with the other. And one of the things that I know, speaking to the home ed community, one of the things that they, I think, were the catalyst for change for them, the reason that they pulled their children or decided not to put them into schooling in the first place, was this whole state control. We have no control of our children. We do, but the state seems to want to control them even more. They're in a system that, they can benefit from if we sign the terms to say this, and if we sign for, these different things to happen. And what worries me is that we're coming away from the real reasons of why families are struggling. If children are struggling with teeth hygiene, there's a real reason there. And it might not be the education of the child. It could very much be the mindset of the adult. It could be that parent is really struggling at the moment. It could be, mental health related. It could be that parent has a neurodivergence that's never been picked up on, and they struggled with their teeth. It could be a finance issue, that they genuinely can't afford toothpaste. We know there's families out there that are living below the breadline. Just seems like they're dodging the actual issue. And further to, Bridget Phillipson, another Labour MP, coming out earlier this week and sort of saying we're going to fix the issue of school non-attendance and school avoidance. Well, they're not even calling it school avoidance, they're just calling it, it's almost like they're calling it truancy, which is such a 1980s phrase, isn't it, for bunking off, which is not what our kids are doing when they're struggling to attend school. And it's really, really frustrating because they've said that 1 in 5 children are struggling to attend school. They're not going frequently or regularly. They see that figure rising to 1 in 4. And so they're going to use artificial intelligence to fix the problem. Oh my God. But the whole teeth brushing thing, number one, it just creates more barriers. It just creates more barriers. And when asked who was meant to be doing this, again, it's put on the plate of the teachers. So we've just had all these strikes and teachers' action, and things have improved to the point where we've not had more strikes. And I'm not sure whether teachers are completely satisfied with the outcome, to be honest with you. And all the teachers that I spoke to about the strikes all said to me, this is not about pay. This is not about pay. This is about the resources, the actual terms in which we work. This is about the children. This is about SEND provision. And it felt as though they were being misrepresented, if I'm honest. And that's just going on the personal conversations that I've had with tens and tens and tens and tens, if not hundreds of teachers. But this is just another job for them to do. And also, it's telling them to get in earlier. Remember, teachers have got children as well. So what are they doing with their kids? Putting them into breakfast. It just seems to be like a never-ending circle. And also, if a teacher is checking a child's teeth and teaching them how to brush their teeth, apparently that's what they're going to be doing in Breakfast Club now, going to school to brush their teeth. It just seems wrong. We don't go to work to brush our teeth. For me, I don't know whether it's because I'm neurodivergent, but it doesn't fit into a box properly. It doesn't feel right. But also, is that not just creating more of a fractured relationship between school and home? Because it's giving that teacher, number one, they probably feel aggrieved at having to go in at 7 o'clock in the morning to open up the school ready for Breakfast Club. They're there till late anyway. We shouldn't really be pushing more hours on teachers when we've just agreed their terms. But also, it just creates those more difficult conversations between teachers and parents. And parents are going to feel more judged. It's going to fracture relationships more. It just doesn't seem to make much sense to me. By all means, give me your views in the comments. But I just wanted to come on and say that because we're in the throes, as we always are, at the beginning of term, of school attendance difficulties. We know that there are children who are struggling to attend. Their voices need to be listened to, even if they don't have a verbal voice. They are communicating, they are struggling to attend. There'll be a reason for that. It's not just they don't want to go. Children want to learn. They want to engage. They want to feel fulfilled. They want to feel good about themselves. They want self-esteem, but they don't know how to get any of those things. That's up to us as adults to encourage them. But we have to also put them in the right environment because otherwise it's absolutely futile. What's the point? What is the point? So yeah, I'm keen to hear your views on all of this and whether, I just think that it's very well timed for me at the moment because we are inundated with inquiries about school attendance difficulties. It's that point in the year. It's always the same after Christmas, after the big holidays in September. And I don't know, I just don't feel like they're reading the room. This is a really tricky time for people financially, emotionally, as parents, logistically and everything else. I'm just really frustrated. So Vic Emsey, sorry, Vic makes a really good point, and it's really good for me to know this stuff. We used to teach toothbrushing in reception in lessons with a big brush and a big model mouth. It was fab. Yeah, so again, what I love about that, and I have seen these, I've actually seen them, I can visualize them. What it does is it teaches the art of toothbrushing without shaming. I think that's what's important. Back in the day, we used to have the knit nurse, didn't we? And kids used to be identified. Oh, she's got knits. And I'm not sure, I mean, they've gone now. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But yeah, it's a bit of a strange one. I think teaching is great. Yes, absolutely. But I just have fears of this being something that, again, we're going down the child protection route. Parents are always attacked when something goes wrong, rather than going, why has it gone wrong? What's going on for this family to make this go wrong? What can we do to support them without making them feel less than? Mel says, my son has a chromosome disorder which affects his teeth. He's had 8 out already. He brushes his teeth twice a day with specialist toothpaste. So Mel, in that scenario, your son would be going in, how I see it, again, looking at full inclusion here, because I'm all about inclusive environments. He would kind of feel a little different going into that, I would guess. I've got Crohn's disease, and that affects my teeth for a variety of reasons. Not just the actual Crohn's disease, but the meds that come with it. And I know that if I was being asked in a group, because this is group work apparently, if I was being asked in a group, I'd feel quite paranoid about that, a bit edgy about it. I wouldn't feel comfortable with it. Sarah Downing, morning, Sarah. Sarah says it feels like another opportunity for the state to dictate how bad we are as parents. Yeah, you see, that's the vibe I'm getting. And I must say, Naga Munchetti on the BBC Breakfast gave him a run for his money, really. She really did quiz him. If you can find the footage, on BBC iPlayer, do have a look. Just felt really uncomfortable to me. Ashley, morning, Ashley. I see your name pop up a lot. I like it. Ashley says, they're all talking about school attendance. They don't seem to link the reasons the children are falling into the river. Yes, I know the meme you're on about, by the way. Just how bad, just how they'll punish pulling them out badly downstream. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Sarah says, I saw the AI for attendance as long as they program common sense, as education seems to have lost there as well. I'm saying nothing. Well, the thing is, I do say a lot, so you know that I'm lying there. And again, it's that archaic system. Go and have a little look at my Facebook Live earlier this week. I also have recorded a number of podcasts this week, which were going to be released in February. And by all means, do give them a listen, because I do go down a bit of a rabbit hole. For those who know me, I do have ADHD. So there are certain topics that I just love talking about. So I go down quite a few rabbit holes in this podcast. And one of them is this, the education system. It's very, very frustrating how behind it is. But yeah, have a listen to that when it comes out. We'll let you know about it anyway. Vic also says, before school clubs used to be separate staff to teachers. Teachers need that time to prep. Absolutely. And also to be people, teaching is a job. Teachers shouldn't have to live, eat, breathe what they do unless they really want to, but they need time out. They need time to be better teachers. We know as parents, we're always talking about self-care. Teachers need self-care, but part of that is being able to be a parent at home, or be an individual at home, or be, themselves, whoever that is, but the person outside of work. But Wes Streeting was talking about this being teacher-led, which is quite alarming. I know our wraparound school clubs locally are run by, not by teachers. It's attached to the school, but they tend to be, I think anyway, I don't tend to use them, but they tend to be qualified childcare professionals who've been there a long time. They're very familiar faces locally, which really works for the children. Sarah makes a very valid point. Sarah, you always make valid points. Maybe get them to give our children and families access to NHS dentists. Yeah. How hard it is to get a dental appointment. And actually, I remember, I'm quite old, okay, I'm in my 40s, but I remember back in the day studying child development at GCSE level, always been very interested in brain psychology and child development and that sort of stuff. And one of the things that we covered was how early should we be taking our children to the dentist? And it was widely accepted for us as 15-year-olds then that as early as possible, to get the child used to it, and to get you used to it as a parent, and develop a relationship with a dentist, your local dentist. Who has a local dentist? I don't have one here. I've got to travel to get to a dentist, quite a few miles as well, actually. So there are some significant barriers between dental hygiene and families. The same with doctors, though. you know. We had this week in our family a situation that just needed a GP. We could not get a GP for love nor money, and we ended up going through the 111 system and being sent to the hospital. I felt like an absolute fraud, like a traitor. We shouldn't have been at the hospital using their resources. It was a GP issue. And I felt so guilty for it. It's not my fault. It's the only way that I could be directed through the NHS system. But we know that that's a whole other issue. But these are the problems that need to be fixed. I mean, the one valid point that Wes Streeting did make this morning, because Naga did question him on this, was that she said, actually, there's some bigger issues here. Why are we missing the bigger issues? It just feels a little bit silly that we're talking about these little issues. And he said, because the little issues add up to the big issues. And I agree with him there. But we need to be careful what we're doing, because actually we're creating problems for problem's sake, for this sort of policing, sort of moral policing mentality that they're trying to give people powers, to sort of judge people. I don't know. I don't know where it would go. Maybe I'm skeptical. I've been in this job too long. Claire says, morning, Claire. My big one struggles with mouth care through abuse in her past. She's got complex PTSD. This isn't going to support any child who's been through this. And again, when we're looking at inclusion, we've got to look at it through a number of lenses. And one of them, for me, I always look at things through a trauma lens, because actually every community has been affected by something traumatic. And intergenerational trauma, it might not be that big trauma happened to us, but maybe our parents or their parents or their parents or their parents, and it affects us because of intergenerational trauma. So whether that trauma, that PTSD or trauma, belongs to the child or their parent, we've got to assume that this might not be an easy thing for anybody to engage in, really. And so you make a really, really valid point. Again, Ashley's put more opportunities for blaming parents. And of course, we've got a lot of parent blame stuff being shared at the moment when we're talking about school avoidance and school attendance. I think there was a reel of mine that went out yesterday all about parent blame. And we have been inundated with questions and requests for support, because so many parents feel this. And I think it's quite nice that they get validated, because I remember when I first started feeling like I was being blamed, I genuinely felt like I was at fault, rather than feeling actually they don't understand my child's presentation, so they're jumping straight to blame. And I remember having to hire a whole team to defend my position. My position had science attached to it. Theirs just had judgment attached to it. So it's very frustrating. Morning, Sophie. Sophie says, my autistic son has full school refusal and has had to be restrained at school just to keep him there. Imagine doing that at work. You'd be in the news. Just because the system failed him for years and left him to struggle in a mainstream, and now I'm the bad guy because he won't attend and I refuse him to put through the mental abuse anymore. Do you know what? I said in my Facebook Live, I was a parent who said the school system failed my child, and I never want to say that ever again. And I think having that empowerment that you've got now to say, no, no, no more, that's where we sort of draw the line and start sort of protecting our children more. You have legal rights. You have legal rights. And school is not the only place that children can be educated. I've said it time and time again. Education is everywhere. It doesn't start and stop in a school building. In the same way as religion. I was brought up a Christian. I'm not now, but as a child, I was a Christian. My Christian faith didn't start and stop when I entered a church. It didn't start and stop when I entered my church school. It was all around me all of the time, because it makes up your life, and it sort of is ingrained in your decision making and everything else. And so actually that's the same as education. You think about how much education your child just learns at home. And when I've got a very, very close connection who is very, very integral in the home education community. And the education that her children receive is superior to the state education, because actually what her children are receiving is the stuff that they're going to need in life. So actually that's not stuff that's taught in a school building. So we need to start questioning what education is. Um, and I could go on and on and on for hours, but I must say you do have legal rights. Remember, I've got my big webinar next week on school avoidance, and I've got my amazing colleague Kelly Jarvis joining me. So we're going to be talking about what causes school avoidance, how we can communicate that to one another, whether it's a parent to teacher, teacher to parent, whatever, and how we can form better relationships to benefit the child. We're going to be looking at the law, what the D of E guidance is on all of this. You will have copies of everything that we talk about, because then you can go and you can provide that to school. You can print it off the internet. The government document. It's not like you're making it up. It's on your side, by the way, but we give you everything in one place. But Kelly is a very, very experienced head teacher. And she headed up a school, a flagship school for very complex children. And their presentations commonly were autism, PDA, ADHD, and lots of things around that, but they were the core presentations that she was dealing with. And the children ended up at her school because they had been failed in education to that point. And it hadn't worked out in mainstream. And lots of her children that came into her school had experienced school refusal, school avoidance. And she helped them recover. Sorry, I've got the lurgy. She helped them recover. She helped them re-engage with education. There was nothing elaborate or expensive to a lot of her strategies. So she's here to share it with teachers. It's going to be brilliant because parents in the room will be able to take these ideas back to school. But even better if we can get more schools onto the actual webinar, because they'll be able to see that it's achievable. It's all about changing your mind frame, actually, because magic is possible when you start to look at things through a slightly different lens. So Kelly's going to be there for that. That's next week anyway, but we will be covering all of this. I'm just doing a little snapshot now because I've got a bee in my bonnet over this morning's BBC. Catherine says, my child's school has just delivered a whole school assembly on tough love. Controversial. No wonder kids don't want to attend when they know no one is going to listen. The psychology behind tough love is that it damages children. I'm almost honestly disgusted. I think that, oh God, that's brazen, isn't it? Tough love. The thing is, I'm very much about teaching my children. My children are, yeah, they're all neurospicy, okay? And they have oodles of empathy, which means they're super, super vulnerable. I don't teach them to walk around saying this is a reason why they're going to fail. However, what I do is teach them about boundaries. So not a big fan of tough love. I really don't like that phrase. So I'm with you on that one. But I think that actually in schools, we should be teaching boundaries. You know, kindness is brilliant, but kindness with boundaries is even safer, particularly for our neurospicy kids, because as neurospicies like me, we give too much, i.e., I should be doing loads of work right now, but I wanted to share some information with you guys. But there'll be boundaries. I've got a time limit. But it's really important that we have boundaries. And I think in schools, it would be really useful for teachers to be taught their own boundaries, because that's really important to keep them safe and well, but also our children as well. Why I'm not a huge fan, if not, I'm actually not a fan, and I don't advocate for homework, because one of the things that I'm constantly telling the team here at Sunshine is switch off. And I'm sure if there's any of them watching, they all laugh at me because they're like, you know, you're the first person that's led a company that we've worked for that's told us to stop working. Because I think it's really important to have boundaries in every area of life. It doesn't have to be awkward. It doesn't have to be mean. You can just be upfront. My good friend Kathy Long, the amazing independent social worker, she talks a lot. We have conversations about boundaries, and she calls it contracting. So she's a therapist and she works in the field of transactional analysis, and which sounds very fancy, and it is. It's very interesting. But they talk a lot about contracting, so setting up those expectations to start with, so everybody's on the same page. So when somebody does push too far, you can just remind them of what they contracted. So it's quite interesting. But I think we need to be teaching our kids these skills because they will actually translate to every area of their life. Sarah, good morning, Sarah. Top fan, it says. Fantastic. Sarah, it says you've popped on the comments. So this is going back to the breakfast clubs. that Labour are suggesting that are run by teachers, if I have sort of understood that correctly. By all means, if anybody watched it and doesn't agree with me and that perhaps I've misunderstood or understood it in a different way to you, do let me know. But Sarah says they're teachers, they're not childminders. I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you. The additional expectations and conditions is what are making teachers leave. You're absolutely right. There is so much pressure on teachers. And I've spoken to so many on a personal level who just feel trapped by the profession, actually. They feel like they've almost been missold a job. Amy, good morning, Amy. Amy says, sorry, I've got the lurgy. I might have to keep taking sips of my coffee throughout this. My eldest is currently on a waiting list for tier 3 CAMS. His mental state is dire. Tier 3 is that means that we're in serious times, doesn't it? School have basically told me if he's not in, he can't access any support. That's absolutely unlawful. It's nonsense. That's discrimination. But how can I get him in without it whilst I wait for all these referrals, yet I'm being blamed? Amy, if you can, will you come to our webinar next week, please? By the way, anybody watching, if you want to come to the webinar and the cost of the ticket is perhaps creating a barrier for you, just ping us a message. We'll help you out. But I think it's really important because we cover this. We cover mental health. We cover the DofE guidance as well, which is actually on your side. We cover the law. We've got so much information packed into this webinar. So do try and make it if you can. I'll read one more comment and then I'm going to maintain my own boundaries, like I said I would, because I've got work to do. Charlene says, good morning, Charlene. Son has severe difficulties, waiting list for CAMS. He's autistic, waiting list is in, oh my goodness. The autism waiting list is 4 years. Oh my goodness. He has severe mental health and anxiety, got told to get to the EHCP, done that and got one, all well and good, but doesn't help me get him to school. Well, the EHCP isn't fit for purpose then, my darling. So get in touch with us so we can help you. Had early help, who couldn't help. Right, now, I'm going to just touch on EHCPs briefly, okay? Because I hear you, Charlene. I hear you, and there are tens of thousands like you across the country. EHCPs are not a magic wand. So many parents get told, once you get that, everything will be fine. Why? Is it a drug that makes society better for us? Is it some kind of justice document? No, it's none of those things. Because actually, an EHCP is absolutely worthless if it doesn't document your child's needs and then provide a provision for them. So in section B, we should be seeing all of the child's needs documented in there, okay? You'll see in section E as well, but section F of your EHCP contains your provision. Whatever's in there is legally binding, okay? So what we would expect to see is whatever needs are being identified by the professionals involved. And with professionals, it's usually expert witnesses, so speech and language, educational psychologists, occupational therapists. Those sorts of people, or physiotherapists, can also be involved as well. There's other people as well, but they're the common ones that we tend to see. Ed Psych is a minimum, okay, because we need to understand how the child's brain works and how it learns. Whatever is being identified as a need needs to have a provision attached to it. So this could be pages long, okay? So for instance, in one of my children's EHCPs, it says that she will receive X amount, so it's very, very specific, X amount of speech and language input from a speech and language therapist educated to this level per week. It's very specific, okay? There's also documented group work in there. There's specific training that the teachers and all the staff around her need to have in order to understand her presentation. Now, when that happens and that education happens and they understand her better, she will be able to access the education because they make it accessible for her. But if that provision isn't documented within the EHCP, nobody knows what they're doing. They're just guessing. They're going, yeah, that child's got an EHCP. They're now on a radar. They're not, they're being identified as a child with a piece of paper, but it doesn't tell them anything that that child needs. So it's very, very likely if your child has an EHCP and they're not attending school, the EHCP is not fit for purpose. We will be going through all of this law in our webinar next week, but it will also have the slides and also links to the law, and you'll be able to ask Kelly, because Kelly works in this field far more than I do in terms of the law, and the educational side of things. You'll be able to ask her questions, and we'll be able to watch it back. When I finish this video, go to the Sunshine Support page. The top video is one I actually filmed a year ago, but it all still stands. It talks all about EHCPs. So if anybody needs information on that and the law and provision and what the school should be doing with or without an EHCP, it's all in there. But again, just ping us a message if there's anything else that you need some help with. We tend to our messages. It's very, very likely that we will ask you to get in touch with our inquiries team so we can properly assist you, because sometimes we've got a lot of questions in order to be able to give you accurate advice. But I hope that this has been useful for you. I try and ram as much information in, or cram as much information in as possible to help you. But by all means, if at any point you feel like you need more info, do just get in touch. We're here to help you. And as for school avoidance, remember that webinar is available next week. If you can't make it, or you would prefer to learn at a time that suits you, we do have our Sunshine Academy, which has a more enhanced course actually on school avoidance. We've also got tens of other webinars surrounding school avoidance that will help you to understand school avoidance and know what your legal rights are and what your child's rights are, and as a school what your rights are, because actually a lot of schools break the law and they don't realize, because they're teachers, they're not legal people. So by all means, do have a look at our Sunshine Academy. If you want the link, just ask us for the link and let us know that it's the Academy that you want the link for. We'll send it to you. But keep persevering with the system, guys, and do keep an eye out on our videos. We've got tons of videos scheduled for the next couple of weeks that I think these short, real videos that will really help you to understand different things. But if you need us, get in touch. But it's been lovely to have a chat with you again this morning, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. Bye.